Good afternoon, folks. This is Susan, and I'm here with the Doctor Who Librarian. This is Harry Van Hoenos, and he has got so much literature. He's got all of the Doctor Who Target books and some hardback books, and he'd like to tell you about the rest of the. We're going to start now with the John Pertwee era, and then continue on into the Tom Baker era in this video. And we would like to encourage you to go find these books anywhere. But Harry's got more to say. And Harry and I did these video series called Doctor Whoooeeooo, and we're together in Geeks Assembled. So here you go, Harry. Take it away with the John Pertwee era.
Okay, Pertwee. This is the beginning of the color era for Doctor Who. For the third Doctor, John Pertwee, most of the stories are Earth-based because that's the way they set it up originally. We start off with the first story of the Pertwee era, which is The Spearhead from Space, also known as the Auton Invasion. Introduces the third Doctor, John Pertwee, gives you the start of his work with UNIT, introduces the characters of no longer now a full-fledged brigadier, Lethbridge Stewart. We also meet up with Sergeant Benton. Very good story with Liz Shaw as the companion. Next, the Cave Monsters, better known to fans as the Silurians. This is a Malcolm Hulke story. It's a 7-part story. As I said before, certain stories had their titles changed because they felt the original ones wouldn't sell, the original title would not sell as well. So they changed the title of the book to, in this case, to The Cave Monsters. Next up, a book that was done again by Terrence Dicks, mixture of Malcolm Hulke and David Whitaker, The Ambassadors of Death. 7-part story, very well done. Definitely one you want to look into if you want to do a Pertwee archive. Final story for the last at the end of the first season of Pertwee, Inferno. 7-parter. This one takes place on not only our Earth, but a parallel Earth as well. Terrence Dicks strikes again, as he did with most of the Pertwee era stories. Next story up, Terror of the Autons. Considered by many a classic, because not only do you get the introduction of Captain Mike Yates, but the big reason, I am the master, and you will obey me. You will obey me. Roger Delgado was the master. Many fans like him. I like him as well, but I will admit that Anthony Ainley did a very good job as well during his run. Next up, in what is I like to refer to as the Season of the Master, because all stories in season 2 of Pertwee's run had the Master in them. The Mind of Evil, 6-part story, very well done. It's available on DVD. In fact, all Pertwee stories are on DVD as well as in book form, but I got the books well before I got the DVDs. Following Mind of Evil, we have The Claws of Exos. One of the few times that the Doctor and the Master actually were willing to work together to stop a foe. 4-parter, done by Terrence Dicks, introduced writing team of Baker and Martin. Next, we have Malcolm Hulke striking again with his adaptation of Colony in Space, The Doomsday Weapon. 6-part story, not a bad story, but I'm not a big fan of Malcolm Hulke's writing as far as doing novelizations. He has, in my opinion, he focuses too much on individual characters and it takes away a lot from the actual story itself. Final story for the second season, written by none other than Barry Letts himself, the producer of the show. Oh, at this time, the demon. Final story, the monster is captured, but believe it or not, the fans didn't like it. The fans wanted the monster free. Well, they got their wish coming up in the third season. We start off with turn 6 adaptation of Day of the Daleks. It's a very good, well done story. You get a bit of an idea of what can happen. You set up a temporal paradox with this story. After that, Brian Hales strikes again with The Curse of Peladon. Joe Grant is basically seen as an ambassador and dressed to the nines in this story. Malcolm Hulk strikes again, this time with the Sea Devils, the underwater cousins of the Silurians. Not a bad story, but I said I'm not a big Malcolm Hulk fan. That's just my opinion. Focus. After that, Baker and Martin strike again with the adaptation done by Terrence Dicks in book form of The Mutants. Very well done story, in my opinion. After The Mutants, we have, if you watch Geeks Assembled, you see that Lee and I agreed Time Monster is definitely maybe a Pertwee era story. It is covered well by the monster. It's probably one of Delgado's strongest performances because for a change, instead of having used mind control, he has to be a charmer to get his way somewhat in this story. That completes the second season. Third season starts off with the 10th anniversary story, The Three Doctors. Baker and Martin strike well, a story that is just a classic in all ways. 10th anniversary, last appearance by William Hartnell on the show. The Doctor is given back his ability to travel through time and space. It's just a classic, pure and simple. You just cannot ask for a better 10th anniversary story. After that, we've got Robert Holmes striking again with the Carnival of Monsters. Not a bad story, a bit of a comedy, but not a bad one. Holmes usually does very well. Rarely does he come up with a bad story. Another adaptation by Malcolm Hulk, another change in title. This book is called Space War. It's actually referred to as Frontier in Space. It's a 6-part story. He ties in with the next book in the series. He's very well because they are interlinked. It's the last appearance by Roger Delgado as the Master. Definitely something you want to get your hands on to read and enjoy. Next to last story, third season. In the fourth season of the show, you have the Planet of the Daleks. Ties in with Frontier in Space, the Space War. Definitely get it. If you get one, you should get the other. Terrence Dicks does a very nice job of writing a novelization of this. Final story for the fourth season, Green Death. Written by Robert Sloman, but the book is done by Malcolm Hulk. It's also Katie Manning, Joe Grant's last story. With Roger Delgado's death, it's beginning at the end of the unit family. Now we start with the fifth and final season. First story, Time Warrior. Classic. Robert Holmes did the intro to it, to the book. The rest of it done by Terrence Dicks. This is a classic, definitely worth not only getting on DVD, but getting for your book as well, because this introduces the Sontarans. It also gives us the name of the Time Lord's homeworld. So it's a must for any fan of the show. After the travels back to the past, you got Malcolm Hulk doing the adaptation of Invasion of the Dinosaurs. The book is called The Dinosaur Invasion. Again, they changed the title to try and boost sales. They felt the original title wouldn't work so well. They had to refine the black and white first episode because the original color episode was white because it was titled simply The Invasion. They didn't want to keep the idea of the dinosaur invasion known until the second episode. So it was titled The Invasion. When they wiped the Invasion episode 1 from Troughton, they did the same with this book, this episode. Next up, Death to the Daleks. Terry Nation story done by Terrence Dicks. Next to last story that does not feature the creator of the Daleks, which will be revealed in the Tom Baker era story Genesis of the Daleks. Return to Peladon. Terrence Dicks does a novelization of the Brian Hale story, The Monster Peladon, and the sequel to The Curse of Peladon. 6-part story, very well done, worth getting the book. Enjoy it. Last but not least, final story for the Pertwee era, Planet of the Spiders. This basically describes, it's a 6-part story. Barry Letts back at the helm for directing. Very well done adaptation by Terrence Dicks. It introduces the idea we've already known today as regeneration, but back then we did not know it as regeneration. So you have the second regeneration, third Doctor is done. We are now at the point where we will be getting into the Tom Baker material. And Lord, are there books for Tom Baker? I kid you not. Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor, my Doctor. So Tom was the one that got me hooked on the show. We start off with the giant robot. Again, name change. The story was originally called Robot. Strictly, it's a 4-parter. It's a reworking of Spearhead from Space. But it shows Tom Baker in the title role, and you can see at times that thing about him being a Time Lord. The fact that he can figure out how much weight pressure is needed to crush a dandelion. It's something a normal human would not be able to do. You have to be able to be a Time Lord to see that.
Yeah, pull forward, stay in the frame.
Next up, back-to-back novelizations by Ian Marter. The Ark in Space. 4-parter. I gotta admit, I'm not a big fan of Marter's work on this story and the follow-up. It does not go with what was shown on television. Marter changes it big time, especially at the end when he says that they travel via TARDIS back to the surface of the Earth, when in the show they went by Transmat. Next up, Sontaran Experiment. Again, Ian Marter doing novelization of the 2-part story. He put stuff in there that just was not in the original showing of the show on television. I can do without some of Ian Marter's work. Now, next is a classic, and I do mean classic in every sense of the word. Genesis of the Daleks. 6-parter. Terrence Dicks. Was written by the late creator Terry Nation. Introduces Davros. This is a classic in every sense of the word. Get the DVD, get the book. Trust me, you'll love it. Finish up the Tom Baker's first year. Revenge of the Cybermen. Not a bad story. You finally get to see, after all these years of having only the Cybermen since the Troughton era and the invasion, we have a new look for the Cybermen, and you can finally tell they are men because of the voice. Now we have the second season. This is what I like to refer to as, a lot of fans refer to as the monster season, and I gotta agree, because it is looking at a lot of the old Hammer film stories. Loch Ness Monster, or AKA Terror of the Zygons. 4-parter, done by Terrence Six. Interesting little trivia fact in this story: when the Brigadier gets a call from the Prime Minister, he says, "Yes, Madam Prime Minister," foreshadowing Margaret Thatcher arriving on the scene as the Prime Minister. Now we start getting into the Hammer material. Planet of the Daleks. Planet of Evil, that is. 4-parter, well done. Jekyll and Hyde with this one. Because you see the professor changing at times due to the effect of the antimatter radiation. Next, classic time again. Pyramids of Mars. I gotta admit, this is the story that got me hooked on the show. Sutekh, the destroyer, Egyptian gods. But above all else, this story is a classic because it gives you the coordinates for Gallifrey. Never been revealed before. Also revealed, it took the combined power, mental power of all the Time Lords just to stop one Osiris. That's saying something, considering how mentally powerful these people were. Next up, Android Invasion. Another slight appearance by Unit. This is the invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's adaptation. Next to last story, Reign of Morbius with Frankenstein. And you get in this one the fact that Time Lords can be executed for crimes against their own people. Last but not least for the season is Seeds of Doom. This is the Thing from Another World. Very well done 6-parter. Last reference to Unit of any sort until the Sylvester McCoy era and Battlefield. More books coming up in just 1 minute. I have to pull a ton of books. Next up, Mask of Mandragora. A very well done book. Philip Hinchcliffe strikes this time, does a very good job of adaptation of the story. Hand of Fear. Liz Sladen, Sarah Jane Smith's last story. The Doctor takes off on his own, calls to Gallifrey. Next, another classic, and I do mean classic in every sense of the word. Deadly Assassin. First viewing of Gallifrey. First time we've ever been to Gallifrey, we know what it is. Get a look at Time Lord society in the story. You also have the return of the Master. After the return to Gallifrey, after a brief time on Gallifrey, Face of Evil, introducing Louisa Jameson as Leela. Very well done novelization by Terrence Six. Terrence Six also did Deadly Assassin. Deadly Assassin was written by Robert Holmes. Leela's second story, and one which I found out Louisa Jameson had to shoot one scene this again a second time because of an error in throwing her knife. Robots of Death.
Pull back into the frame, Harry. There you go.
Yeah. Last but not least for the season, Talons of Wen Chiang. Robert Holmes written, Terrence Dicks novelization. When those two were on the same page, you could not go wrong. You just could not. Louisa's final season starts off with Horror of Fang Rock. Robert Holmes had been working on this one, and even after he left the script editor, Terrence Dicks still got to do the novelization. Next up, Invisible Enemy. I have only one thing to say about this one. Martha! Yep, this is the story that brought K9 into the series. Terrence Dicks does a nice job of it. Definitely worth adding. Image of the Fendal. Oh, a minor classic, but very well done. Shows what happens when the Time Lords decide to put a time loop around a world. The world does not exist as long as the time loop holds. Terrence Dicks does another one. Sunmakers. This was Louisa Jameson's favorite story. Takes place on Pluto of all worlds. And it's a thing about taxes and what in America we'd call the IRS. Last story for the season, The Invasion of Time. Gallifrey, actually 2 stories with the 6-parter. You've got the 4-parters with the Vorlons, and then you finish up with 2-parters with the Sontarans. Next up, The Key to Time. A 6-episode. Okay, one other book I forgot to mention. Underworld. This is a basically telling of the Greek story of the quest is the quest. Jason and the Argonauts. Not a bad adaptation at all. Next up, we go with The Key to Time. And is this some fun stuff? This entire season was one big themed season, and it worked. You start off with Ian Marter doing his work on the story, The Ribos Operation. You get Romana number 1 introduced, which is the late Mary Tam. You get the DVDs, you're going to be good, but get the books. They are well worth it. Now, for the second story, the Pirate Planet. Somewheres, but the book is well done adaptation. It's by reasons I can't find it right now, but it is there. It is a adaptation by another author for Doug Adams. Those of you who are familiar with Doug Adams know him from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He also did 3 Doctor Who stories and was responsible for writing Invasion of Time. He did the story for the Key to Time. He did Pirate Planet. He did, in the upcoming season, he did 2 other stories. He did Shada, and he did The City of Death. After Pirate Planet and acquiring the second part of the Key to Time, you have Stones of Blood. This story takes place on Earth. It is a well-done story. Get the DVDs, you'll enjoy it. Then, after Trip to Earth, we've got The Androids of Tara. Again, Terrence Dicks striking, and a change of pace. Mary Tam gets a double role. Well, she gets not only to play herself as Romana, but she also gets to play the princess in this story. So, something to look forward to. Power of Kroll. This one was okay, but it's a Terrence Dicks adaptation, did a good job, but you don't get K9 in this one because it's set up to be all swamp. So the gentleman who did the voice of K9 actually was in this story. Last but not least, Armageddon Factor. As I said, final story in The Key to Time, and you have the introduction of the Black Guardian. You had White Guardian in Rivals Operation. Now the Black Guardian shows up. After the Armageddon Factor, you have the adaptation by Terrence Dicks of Destiny of the Daleks. You have Mary Tam having left, Lalla Ward on the scene now as Romana. And the return of Davros as well. So be prepared for some interesting times with that. You've got Tyrant, you've got City of Death. Originally written by Douglas Adams, but the book was done by James Goss, who also did the other two Doug Adams stories. He did the Pirate Planet. He also did Shada. This story is set in France, was actually done on location in France. So look around for it. After Pirate Planet, after City of Death, you have Creature from the Pit. Now you start seeing trouble starting to show on the set. Not a bad story, but troubles on the set with possible strikes and such. Nightmare of Eden gives you an idea of what can happen if a person gets hooked on drugs, as monsters are destroyed and turned into drugs, and the drugs are sold. Next last story of the season, last one aired, Horns of the Nylon. Again, you've got Greek mythos with that, because you have the references to Greek stories, Greek mythology. Finally, last but not least, story that has been done as an animated story because the original story did not get to be finished in the UK. You have the one, the only, Shada. This was never completed because of a strike on the BBC premises, and they were unable to get that story finished. Now for Tom's last season. And it is a complete change of pace. New look, new covers for the Doctor, her new opening title sequence. You start off with the Leisure Hive. And the Doctor is aged. Still the same incarnation, but aged considerably. Misplaced my copy of Meglos, but there is a book for that adaptation. You've got interesting fact with Meglos that you have. Yeah, here it is. Here's Meglos. Meglos has a very special guest star in it, Jacqueline Hill, who many fans may remember as Barbara from when Hartnell was the Doctor. Now we get into E-Space, the E-Space trilogy. Original author, Andrew Smith, doing his own work on Full Circle. This story introduces Adric, and it's a pretty good story. Now we get into a story that I truly love from the E-Space trilogy, State of Decay. This is an out-and-out vampire story. Well done. Terrence Six not only did the novelization, he wrote the actual story himself. Get it. It is classic, classic, classic. Final story in the East Base trilogy, Warrior's Gate. This one is not a good book. There's no chapter breaks. It's just basically one big, long story. The other reason I have it is because I need it for my library. Then the final two stories, which start off has a part of a trilogy. Keeper of Traken. Next to last story, he loved Nissa. I gotta admit, I'm a fan of the character. Loved the story. Terrence Six did a great job with the novelization. And all I've got to say about the end is you have a twist. Tremos, who's Nissa's father, reverse the lettering, and you'll see that the monster is back. Final story for the Tom Baker era, done by the man who eventually would take over for a while as script editor, Christopher Bidmead, Logopolis. The finale for the Tom Baker era, probably one of the best regeneration stories you will find out there. I mean, I will admit I am biased when it comes to Tom Baker, but what can you say? Everybody has their own personal favorite as a Doctor. To me, Tom Baker was my favorite. So there you have all the Pertwee stuff. I will now get, for those who wish it, I'll pull the Davison material.